Well, at the forefront of the climate emergency, of course, are those who live on low-lying islands across the world. And it was their representatives who gave some of the most moving speeches today on the conference floor. Joining me are Shauna Aminath, the Minister of Environment for the Maldives, and Seve Panyu, Tuvalu's Minister for Finance and Climate Change. And we saw earlier in the programme your emotional plea just in that room over there. I mean, do you feel that the rich world has just let you down here?
Exactly. We had very high hopes of coming to Glasgow. We had a very high level of anticipation and optimism that Glasgow will deliver action. We are at the front line of climate change impacts. Tuvalu land is fast disappearing. Tuvalu is literally sinking. And we are here to advocate for ambitious action. And action needs to be taken now. So over the last couple of weeks, we are a bit saddened and disappointed that that level of anticipation and optimism advocated for by the G20 world leaders when they spoke at the summit here in Glasgow had not been translated into concrete actions.
And what do you think went wrong?
Well, there is still some misgivings and disbelief on the impacts of climate change and the resultant effect.
What, you think they don't believe you?
It seems to be. But we are here to tell the world that we are being severely affected. We are suffering the impacts of climate change and the injustice of climate change on our people and our community.
I mean, you face the same existential threat. Do you share that sense of, well, it's betrayal, really, isn't it?
Absolutely. The thing is, climate change is an everyday battle for us. We live with these changes, the impacts of climate change. Our islands are eroding, our coral reefs are dying, we have run out of fresh water. Impact of climate change is not something that will happen in the future for us, it's happening now. And I am still hopeful, I want to be hopeful, because there's no other option for us. There's no planet B for us, there's no other country that we can run into, there's no higher ground for us.
I mean, when we talk about, existential threats and climate catastrophe, when you look into your future, do you think you have a future?
The IPCC report says we've got about 2 to 3 decades, and even in my plenary today, I said we've got 98 months for us to halve our emissions to keep it with 1.5. And if we can't do it, we're talking about countries like Tuvalu, countries like the Maldives being inundated and becoming uninhabitable.
So what's your answer to those people who say, but what about all these new, airports in the Maldives and your reliance on international travel? Isn't that hypocrisy?
No country should have a free ticket on this one. No one should have a free pass, including the Maldives. And we're doing what we can at home. We have pledged to become net zero by 2030. We are phasing out single-use plastics by 2023. We have protected 13% of our coral reefs. But as a frontline state, we need urgent action from the global community to keep it to 1.5, because we did not cause the climate crisis.
So what will you do now? Because everyone's saying, it's all about next year. So how will you keep the pressure on for next year?
Yeah, so just keep on the advocacy to tell the world our message. We are here in Glasgow to negotiate a non-negotiable future because we have our land fast disappearing. We are literally sinking. So if we cannot achieve the 1.5 trajectory, that means it's a survival of a race, completely annihilated.
How long have you got if things carry on as they are now?
In a few decades' time. We are talking tens of years now.
How does that make you feel?
Yeah, very worried and frustrated because our message hasn't been heard or hasn't been accepted by the international community.
We've got 98 months to sort this, to halve our emissions in 10 years, we need to do this. Otherwise, my question is, we're about 400,000 people. Are you willing to accept 400,000 people as climate refugees in your countries?
Ministers, thank you both very much indeed.